Let's see whether or not the Scots will be a little happier or not when it comes to independence, because a new poll out yesterday showed that according to these polls for Ipsos Mori, that 58% of Scots now want Scotland to be independent, and just 42% vote against that. Well, that's rather different from what happened in 2014 when they voted to remain part of the United Kingdom. So are we looking at the breakup of the United Kingdom within a matter of months even? Who knows? Well, let's talk to Michael Sturrock. He's a political commentator. He's also Scottish independence campaigner. Good morning to you, Michael.
Morning, Julia.
This poll is really set the cat among the pigeons, hasn't it? But it's just the latest of a long line of polls showing surging support for independence.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the headline figure is quite exciting, 58%, but as with all these things, we have to look a bit beyond that to get the full story, because that's not including undecideds. But even then, when you include undecideds, it's still 55% in favour of independence. And noticeably, support for remaining in the Union actually goes down, which it normally doesn't when you include undecided. So that's at 39%. But as you say, most importantly, it's actually the 9th poll in a row that has had independence clearly ahead. And that's really the important thing. This isn't just a response to something that Boris Johnson has done, but actually it's a sustained development.
It's going on. It's not just a one-off poll. I mean, when we've seen during the pandemic, Boris Johnson, huge poll ratings really early on when we were all on the same side during the lockdown. And then it's massively waned since. Nicola Sturgeon, however, she has massively kept her support. Again, I'm always amazed, given the many things we criticise Boris Johnson for, like handling of things like elderly deaths in care homes and things like that. And actually, Nicola Sturgeon's got a worse rate than that, worst per capita death rate in care homes as well. But she, through, I think, these daily press conferences, she has maintained a huge amount of support, even among those who don't vote SNP, and is hugely popular. Do you think a lot of this is down to what's happened with the handling of the pandemic and Nicola Sturgeon's personal popularity ratings?
Well, I think there's two things there. One, yes, obviously Nicola Sturgeon, as we know, is just an incredibly good politician. But importantly, as you say, and we can quibble over the numbers, the coronavirus numbers, but actually what's been happening is we've been having an honest conversation between the government and the public that has been going on every day. We know exactly where everything's at, and the numbers aren't being fudged. The Scottish Government is not pretending to have a world-beating system. They're being honest with what is actually happening and the reasons that they are making the decisions that they are making. And that's really important, I think, and shows a maturity of governance as opposed to the kind of bluster that we're getting in Westminster.
OK, and just finally, I suppose, the Scottish parliamentary elections in May, a lot of these elections, of course, local elections have been delayed. Huge spurt of elections coming up next May, we assume. The Sturgeon and others have said very clearly, if there is a majority, that would give the SNP a mandate to hold a second independence referendum. And of course, the whole argument for that has actually been borne out with the bids for a second referendum by Labour and the others on Brexit issue. Do you think that A, that she will get that mandate, and B, that she will insist, no matter what Westminster says, on holding that second referendum?
Well, I mean, we have to look at the history in this. For ages, on devolution, on further powers for Scotland, the UK government has always said, no, we're not going to do it, not going to do it. And as soon as there's a sustained majority for it in Scotland, then they've given it. So it's just not a credible position for Westminster to keep holding out when there, as we've seen, a long line of democratically legitimate polls showing that this is what Scottish people want. So I'm not convinced that Boris Johnson is going to hold out for that as well. And the big majority at Holyrood, which is looking like it's going to be, I think, is more than enough.
OK, well, as a Democrat, somebody voted for Brexit, as a Democrat, my view is if the Scottish people vote for that in the parliamentary elections, they've got the mandate and they should be entitled to have that vote. And if they vote to leave, good for them if that's what they want to do. If they vote to stay, I think we should accept that as well. I'm just all in favour of the people getting their final say. Huge thanks for joining me, Scottish independence campaigner and commentator